Today on My World of Work, we sit down with someone whose career reads like a masterclass in reinvention, courage, and purpose. From working her way up in corporate environments to earning 3 psychology degrees, all cum laude, and now running her own clinical psychology practice. Athenia Faye's story reminds us that it is never too late to build the life you actually want. In this conversation, we explore her academic path, her years of leadership and culture work, the transition into clinical psychology, and the heart behind the work she now does with individuals, couples, families, and communities. Without wasting time, Athenia, welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I'm not sure if I said your name correctly. Is it Athenia Faye?
Faye.
Athenia Faye. Oh, sorry for messing it up.
No, all good, all good.
Okay. You have a very rich academic background. You have 3 degrees in psychology. All of them, you got them with a cum laude. So I would like to know what initially sparked your interest in psychology, especially later in your career.
Okay. It's actually a very interesting story. What happened was, teachers don't necessarily know the impact that they're having on us, unfortunately. And what happened was that when I was in grade 9, I was not doing well with maths. I really didn't grasp maths very well. And my math teacher came up to me and she put her hand on my shoulder and she said to me, "Do us both a favor, don't take maths." And so what
Yeah.
happened was that instilled in me a belief that I was stupid and that I was never going to get anywhere in life. It also put me on a different path because they separated I was in an all-girls school, and they separated the girls that took maths from the girls who didn't. And we essentially did not qualify at the end of matric with a bachelor pass, a university exemption. And if you did not get a bachelor pass, that meant that you were not going to university. And I lived with this knowledge, understanding, belief is a better word. I lived with this belief that I was in fact stupid for about 20 years. And so one day when I was 36, I was having a conversation with somebody and she was studying, she was doing her BEd, Bachelor of Education. And I said to her, I'm so impressed with you. You're getting your degree. This is such a big deal. I'm so in awe. And she said to me, "But you can get your degree." And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm not clever. I'm not clever like you. And she said, "Athenia, you can definitely get your degree." And I said, "Well, I don't actually have an exemption." And she said, "Yes, but you're old enough now. You can get an age exemption." I had never heard of this. And so
Yeah.
she set in motion essentially the courage in me to request an exemption, which of course I was granted because I was so old at that stage, old enough. And I applied at UNISA, was accepted, which was a huge deal for me because I had lived for so long thinking I'm never, ever, ever going to get a university entrance. I did register for a Bachelor of Education, and I started with my bachelor's and started to really enjoy the subjects. Of course, the psychology electives being the ones that I preferred, which then prompted me to switch my bachelor's from BEd to BPsych. And what happened was that as I was doing my bachelor's, I started to get distinctions for each subject. And I started questioning this belief of mine that I was stupid. And I said, somewhere, somehow, somebody's confused, probably me. And one of the first few subjects we did in psychology introduced me to the concept of different forms of intelligence. And I realized that although I don't have a maths type intelligence, I do have others. And I have a very good intrapersonal kind of intelligence, and I can understand people. And so essentially what happened was that I finished my bachelor's cum laude at great shock to me, obviously. And then kind of sat there going, what's just happening here? And said, well, you know what? Time's passing anyway. This is important. Time's passing anyway. You can either get to the end of 1 or 2 years and say, well, I have an honors, or you can say, well, the time has passed. And I just decided that I was going to utilize the time more efficiently. And so I enrolled for honors and went on to do exactly the same. And then masters, I don't know if you know the path to a psychology master's in all countries, it's very, very competitive. It takes a long time. You get rejected repeatedly. My first year was rejected from 3 universities, and my second year I applied at 12, interviewed at 4, got rejected from 11, and thank God was finally accepted. The pool of my year of applying, my pool had about 750 applicants, and there's very often anything between 750 1,000 people competing for master's places, and
Yeah.
there are only generally 10 people taken per university.
Oh, they only
So
take
it's a
10 people.
yeah. They take 10 people, you've got a huge amount of people applying. On average, there's most likely about anything between 100 and 150 master's students in the psychology field. This is in clinical, right? I'm in clinical.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a big deal to be chosen. It's a really, really big deal to be chosen. And that's essentially how it happened. That's how I got to 3 degrees later. It was a real journey.
It's a very interesting story. We should actually start shaming teachers. What the teacher did to you, it's not right.
Yes, absolutely. And I hear the same story all the time. I hear it daily. I hear it with kids telling me, teenagers telling me how they're being bullied at school by either another kid or them or a teacher that does make them feel and sets in motion all these limiting beliefs about them and themselves and their academic opportunities and what they can and can't do.
Yeah, maybe even the teachers, they don't actually enjoy the work that they do. They're just doing it.
Yes, yes, I agree. Yes, I think so
You
too.
spoke, you mentioned that you got an age exemption to get into varsity. At what age did you start studying psychology?
I started at 36. Took me 11
At 36.
years to get, yeah, started at 36 during my bachelor's. My bachelor's took me about 3.5 years. My honors took me 2 years, and then master's is 1 year. Some of them are 2 years. One of them, mine was more 1 year course material, and then you're
Yeah.
required for clinical, you're required to do an internship and a ComServe year. It's taken me
So were
11
you
years
ever,
in total.
so were you ever scared when you were doing that journey of yours?
Every day, every single day. I have been fighting and facing my fear every single day.
So was there a specific moment or experience where you realized this is the direction I want to commit to?
Yes, I think studying psychology and seeing the impact that it had on me. So, what happens when you study psychology is that you start to get a better understanding of self. And when you have a better understanding of self and you learn so much more about you and human behavior in general, it does feel as though you would like to share that. You want to help other people out. And I think as I was working my way through these different studies, and that whole process of learning that there were different intelligences, I'd never have known that if I didn't engage in psychology. I wouldn't have understood that. And then starting to see how the psychology work, the works of Freud and Erikson and Carl Jung, those teachers, when you look at their work and you start to understand yourself through that work, it really does change you. And that helped me to really make the decision that this is where I want to be.
So moving from organizational development studies to clinical psychology is quite a pivot. How did your early academic experience shape the kind of psychology you are today?
So what's interesting is I was actually studying them concurrently. So while I was doing my bachelor's, I was also doing a higher certificate in change management and organizational development at the same time. And what was happening is that because I was working in corporate, that organizational type psychology was very helpful in understanding human beings and human behavior within the work context. It also helped me understand culture, company culture, and corporate culture. And so I was using different studies, both from personal psychology, individual psychology, and from organizational psychology, to be able to help me understand what was going on in the world around me. And it just helped me shape myself, and it helped me shape the work that I was doing in the corporate. So I was doing leadership development programs, which I was very, very fortunate enough to take out into Africa. I went to Uganda, to Kenya, to Nigeria, and to Ghana. Also took that program down to Durban and to Cape Town. And it was just so beautiful to be able to teach this program and to understand company culture and to teach company culture and to teach how we would want to change company culture. So, and move it from a very command and control kind of company culture to something that was far more what's called now servant leadership. And that helped me. That helped me to understand myself, to understand humans. The studies itself was just fundamental in being able to be really, really good at my job. And I loved it.
So Are there any lessons from organizational development that you still use in your clinical work?
I often do work that's related to companies and very often do work that's related to company culture. In fact, I've just had a session this morning. So, yeah, a lot of that is repeated. A lot of that work is reinforced and helping people understand how company culture works, how they fit into it, how difficult it is to change company culture. That is very helpful because people think that they can just make these changes and then, everybody's going to adjust. It doesn't work like that. Company culture comes from the top and it is very, very difficult to change.
Okay. So I've heard that people say clinical psychology training is quite emotional and mentally demanding. What personal shifts did you experience what personal shift?
Internship year is a different, it really is just a next level of difficulty. You are challenged in ways you never ever thought you could be. You are forced to confront all of yourself. I was forced in that year to confront fear of change. I relocated. My master's year, I live in Joburg, and my master's
Yeah.
year, I had to relocate to Durban. My internship year, I had to relocate to Cape Town. So, and then ComServe, I had to relocate back to Joburg. So I've had to face a lot of change and overcoming that, being away from my family, that was incredibly difficult for me. I had to face the fear of being seen. So what happens is that in a training year, you are always being perceived by your supervisors, and they are not always friendly with their criticisms, and that
Yeah.
can be very hard to hold that feedback. That doesn't always feel justified and can sometimes feel quite unfair. I was placed in a I was in a psychiatric unit for two of my rotations, and then I was in an outpatient in the third one. And it is not easy working in a psychiatric facility. And you really do have to confront the real of human, the realness that humans can get to, the deep dark that humans can get to. That was incredibly difficult. That fear of judgment, of always being watched and criticized and confronted with who you are, is hard. I mean, it's hard on a good day, and it's even harder when it's coming from people that are making decisions about your future. So that was really difficult to sit with.
So which rotation would you say challenged you the most and why?
I would say probably uh, the first and the last. So I was placed into acute female acute. It's a very difficult environment because I came in from never having been in a psychiatric hospital before to sitting in this place where it was real. It was very, very real. And then the last one, I was in an outpatient department, and there I was having to deal with far more medical conditions that were being presented. So you sat with that as well. There were some that will stay with you. Those clients can stay with you forever. My second rotation was actually in forensics, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Working in a psychiatric facility in a forensics facility. It was I loved it. It was so interesting. And I sat in some of the most beautiful, interesting observations. We did 30-day observations where somebody who has committed a crime comes and is observed, and I found that to be thrilling.
Yeah. Eh, what kind of work were you doing in forensics?
Therapy, interesting enough, and group work. So I'd go and run support groups. We often did substance abuse support groups where we educate people. I would sit with those patients and we would discuss what had happened, possibly, during their crime or how they had gotten to the stage. Very often it was substance-induced psychosis that had led them to this place. And there's just so many feelings that are associated with it. There's so much regret, there's so much remorse. There's this thing happened and they wish that it hadn't, and their life has now been severely impacted. To the opposite, which is, yes, I did this crime and I did it, and that's fine. And then those people would obviously go on to their court dates and be found guilty and not be found to be incapacitated as a result of a mental health condition. So yeah, it was just such a wide spectrum of clients and of patients, and it is very interesting work.
Oh, so you were dealing with criminals.
No, we don't call them that, Sifiso.
Oh, yeah.
They're not criminals. No, because what happened is that their crime was actually committed in a state where they could not be held fit. They could not be actually held accountable for what had happened. Yes, so they're actually found. So after this 30-day observation, they found that they were not capable of making the right decisions as a result of a mental health condition. And so what happens is that very often those people are actually kept in the forensic unit and they can stay there for a long time. Some people have been there for years, and it's not prison. It's not prison, but it is a forensic facility that keeps them.
So if we don't call them criminals, what do we call them?
We call them patients.
Patients. Okay.
Yes.
So you spent many years in corporate, from leadership development to change management to coaching. What did those years teach you about people and human behavior?
It taught me that we're all different. Everybody's different. We all come from the same place. We are all the same, but we're also very, very different. It's taught me that a lot of our experiences mold and shape who we are. Working in companies and in organizations has taught me that culture is everything. Company culture is everything. And what that means is that it can seriously impact the way that individuals are treated and how they behave within an organization. And if there's problems within a company culture, there's going to be problems within your teams. And that's important to know. And I learned a lot also working in corporate about command and control kind of I don't like calling it leadership styles because I don't think it's leadership. I think it's a management style. And there's a very different kind of leadership style, which is very effective and can be embraced. And when companies have been embracing different leadership styles, they're very, very successful.
So looking back, which role or project shaped you the most?
It was definitely working on what at that stage originally was called servant leadership. And it was a 3-day intensive program that was done off-site. We would go to a conference venue. And for 3 days, we would sit with a specific team. And over the 3 days, the program was designed that their company, their team dynamic, their team culture would eventually arise. It would come up within the session. And there was a lot of team building that happened. There's a specific model where the team starts to form and then the team starts to storm. And when that storming would take place and a lot of the clashes and the difficulties within the team dynamics would arise, we would sit in that place for 3 days. It was very emotional, it was very difficult, very tense, a lot of conflict management required. And at the end of those 3 days, that team would come together. It was astronomical just watching this process take place. And I found it to be the most rewarding work. It was so, so wonderful.
So many people struggle with career transitions, especially leaving stable jobs for something new. What helped you make the leap from corporate into psychology?
I think what really tipped me was working with the company culture and seeing that my own personal level of integrity and my values were not necessarily being reflected in the company, and the company's values were slightly conflicting, and in corporates they often are. And I got to a place where I just was not going to be able to do that for very much longer. I found that it was going to be very difficult for me to say one thing and say that this was what was important, and then only to have teams go back into the environment to find the complete opposite. And I don't like being hypocritical, and integrity is very important to me. And I struggled with that part. And so when I got to the place where I just thought, I can't do this for too much longer, it's just not, it doesn't feel congruent with who I am. That helped me to make the decision.
So
Also
if
coincided with masters, because I was waiting for masters and I was applying for masters. And I decided that I would rather commit to the master's process and not have to stress too much about corporate. I was still working, so that's when I sort of transitioned into working for myself. I was still working with corporate, but not necessarily in corporate.
when you were doing your bachelor, your psychology.
Absolutely. And my bachelor's and my honors were both done part-time. So I worked through UNISA, I studied through UNISA, and I was working the whole time. So I would work all day, go home, and then have to study while I had a family as well.
Yeah, that was hectic, mas.
It was hectic. With masters, it's full-time, so you can't work. So that made a transition. But yes, my bachelor's and honors had to be done as a part-time thing. With the organizational studies as well, I had to do that on the side as well and work full-time.
So, if you could go back, what would you tell yourself on the day you decided to start the journey?
That's a nice question. Do it. I would tell myself to do it. I would tell myself to believe in myself a little bit more. I would tell myself that it's going to work out. It's possible. There is going to come a day where I will have got those degrees and I will be doing what once felt like an almost impossible dream. Keep going,
Yeah,
keep swimming.
just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
Uh,
Time. The thing that stood out for me was always the time's going to pass anyway. So what are you going to do with
true.
that? The time's going to pass anyway. So you can either end up finishing 3 or 5 years with nothing, or you can end up with a degree or three. Decide which one you want. Time's going to
Now
pass.
you don't have any regrets now.
I don't have any regrets having done this journey. No, it wasn't easy, but I don't regret undergoing the journey. I regret that I didn't start it sooner, but I also assumed that certain things had to be in place for me to do it. And I trust that the timing was right. I do wish I had been able to do it sooner, but it is what it is.
Yeah, to go through that journey, I'm sure you need to have a very good support system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm grateful for
Uh,
my family who have stood by me. And honestly,
I,
when I come up with these big ideas and these crazy ideas, they just support me.
it's awesome to have that kind of family and support structure.
I'm so grateful.
You now run your own private practice while also still doing trauma-related emergency response work. How would you describe the heart of the work you do today?
My friend once told me that I have a gift, and she said, I bring order to chaos.
Yeah.
And that for me sums it up. Because I think when people come to me, they've often been in a very volatile, very emotional state. And they are sitting in a place where they're feeling like they're not okay. Something's happened. They can't cope. There's something wrong. And they really are feeling as if there's a lot of chaos happening in their lives. And I think part of my role is just helping them to make sense and helping them to bring a little bit of structure and a little bit of order into that. And that might come through some insight in terms of what's happening. It might come through helping them work on their self worth. I do a lot of work related to self worth and how people believe they're not good enough, they're not worthy, they don't deserve better. A lot of my work is structured around that and helping people understand and sort of process their lives, their traumas, their upbringings, and how that's helped them or destroyed them or shaped them or changed them. And just helping them to understand that process is really what I do all day.
So, what kind of clients or cases resonate most deeply with you?
I'm particularly drawn to trauma related difficulties. I think that is when people are real and incredibly vulnerable. And I'm so grateful to be allowed into that space with them. I do a lot of work with autism and neurodivergence, and I do a lot of work with grief, which I think also I'm very comfortable to sit in grief as hard as it is. And I think when you don't shy away from somebody else's grief, it really does help them to sit in it too. So those are places that I'm very sort of comfortable in.
Let me see. Your work spans individual therapy, couples counseling, child therapy, group therapy, community health, community mental health. What does a typical day look like for you if
I love this question because there is no typical day because every day is different, and that's what I love. A lot of the time, if you're seeing a new client, you don't actually know what they're going to present with. But on average, a lot of my days could range from one would be, for example, today I started the morning with somebody literally in a very difficult company culture. I have done 2 ADHD assessments this morning. I would often do an autism assessment. I spend a lot of time with teenagers, particularly as it relates to self-harm, possible hospital admissions because of as a result of all of these self-esteem difficulties. Relationship dynamics is something that is prevalent at least once or twice a day. A lot of people come with trauma. There's a lot of people that will come because of family dysfunction. And then so we do some of the work on how the family system has been impacting them. A lot of children might come to me because of school bullying, and we might do play therapy, or with the teenagers, talk therapy. I do a lot of work with grief, and I do some bonding therapy as well, which could be sitting with a parent and a child and trying to restore the relationship. So my days could look anything between that.
No day is the same. Every day
No
is
day
actually
is the
different.
same. Yeah, there's other work that I do where I might do like so that trauma related stuff, the trauma response stuff might be I'll do a session with a client who's been hijacked or something traumatic has happened, and then we will do work related to that. Depends on the day.
So, do you work with people do you also deal with who struggle with suicide or depression?
I work with people that have suicidal ideation every single day. In fact, it is important that I ask those questions. And it is also one of the things I'm comfortable to speak about because I think it has so much stigma. And it's very important that the client I'm sitting with or the patient I'm sitting with feels very comfortable to disclose this to me. Suicidal ideation is real and it's very prevalent. People feel it a lot. And sitting in that difficult space and holding that for them, they really can struggle because they feel as though something's wrong with them because they've gotten to this place where suicide is a real option. And what I always say to clients is, suicide is a permanent solution to what's often and unfortunately a temporary problem. But in the moment, it doesn't feel temporary. In the moment, it feels all consuming. And so it's helping people to work through what's going on. And then, obviously, if need be, I'm required to mitigate their risk. And if they are at risk of harming themselves and or others, then that's when we would start to discuss alternatives in terms of hospital admissions to make sure that they're safe.
So, what signs can somebody else look for if maybe someone is going through?
Good question. Thank you. One of the first things is to start to see changes, pay attention to changes. And those changes are often presented in the person doesn't necessarily want to engage anymore. They may start to self isolate. They may start to stay home. They often will want to spend more time in bed, and that can look like sleeping too much or too little. So there's changes in their sleeping behavior. They may feel as though, or they may start to communicate things through their behavior, which could look like starting to give away things. Suddenly they want to give you their prized possession. They start to clean up. They start to make their lives look a little bit more organized because if obviously they are thinking about the impact of leaving. If anybody starts to tell you that they're considering suicide as an option, then please absolutely immediately get them assistance. You can go and walk straight into any emergency hospital, into the ER, and you just tell them that you're not feeling great, you're thinking about harming yourself, and they will take care of you and they will immediately admit, and they will then make sure that you see a psychiatrist and a psychologist. They may start to write letters. They may start to say goodbye. They may start to want to see family members that they haven't seen so that they can say goodbye. And if anything like that is communicated to you, then that's obviously worth noting. People, not everybody's going to tell you that they're thinking about it. And then
Yeah.
obviously that can be even harder to pick up on. When somebody has decided that they're going to do this, they may not share, which can make it very, very hard for you or somebody else to pick up whether they are at risk. But it's watching for any changes and knowing if you can see any signs of depression or mental health related difficulties. Maybe they stop taking care of self, they don't want to shower, they're not making effort with their presentation, their appearance. Things just start to change. It's paying attention to that and then making sure that they get the help that they need.
So, you mentioned that they can go to a hospital. Doesn't matter which one. Should it go? Should I go to? It doesn't matter if they go to a public or private,
It
even if
doesn't
they don't
matter.
have maybe medical aid.
It doesn't matter. You can go to any hospital. The hospital is required and completely understands how to deal with it. Some hospitals do have a psychiatric unit and others don't. But if they don't have a psychiatric unit, they are in a position to stabilize the patient. And then from there, they will make recommendations. So if you do go to a hospital that doesn't have a psych unit, they might then speak to another hospital that does, and then they might transfer you to that hospital because they have a psych unit, or they would then apply for admission at an actual psychiatric facility. And there are different psychiatric facilities throughout the country.
Oh, okay. So, would you say every person needs to see a psychologist, a clinical psychologist?
I wouldn't say everybody has to see a clinical. There are different psychologists. We have different fields. So we have an educational psychologist, we have a research psychologist, industrial, clinical counseling. And we do work with different things. So clinical is specifically for individuals that are really, really struggling and could have the potential for severe psychopathology. And then that just means that we've been trained for those things. But the other psychologists are also trained to do different things and all things often. You can see a different type of psychologist. But would I recommend that people see a psychologist when they need help? Absolutely. Find somebody who can assist you. And I often say also make sure that the person fits with you. So go and see
Yeah.
somebody. And if you feel like this person's just not right for you, then find somebody else. It is important that you build up a therapeutic relationship with somebody who can support you through difficult times and can help you. And as with all things, as with all relationships, it is important that you like the person. It is important that you get along with the person, that they use a modality that you appreciate or like or enjoy. So yes, definitely see a therapist, but also find one that works for you.
Which part of your work feels most natural and which part stretches?
Nice question. Most natural is probably sitting with the client in the room. That can sometimes feel really comfortable. And like I said, grief and trauma, I'm very comfortable with. What stretches me is probably, I think, when clients sit in a place where they're stuck and they cannot move forward and nothing the psychologist tries helps. I think that can really feel difficult and challenging because obviously we want to help. And when the client stays in a place where they cannot move forward, it does feel as though you're not helping the person. And I know that's not the case. And I know that, we can only do so much and the rest is up to the client. But it can feel difficult when somebody is really just stuck in a place and they can't seem to move forward. I do find that challenging.
Working in mental health, especially in trauma and emergency response, can take an emotional toll. How do you protect your own mental and emotional?
Well, I think the first thing is that I'm in therapy, and it is important for psychologists to have their own psychologist because we do need to take our stuff and the things that we're dealing with. And it's not so much the clients. We don't necessarily discuss clients. That's something we would discuss with a supervisor. So I have a supervisor and I have a psychologist, and the psychologist just helps you as a human to deal with what's happening in your own life and how you're kind of holding all of this. So that's the first thing that I make sure I do is that I go to therapy myself. And I feel that that's been quite helpful. And then difficult cases I will take to supervision.
So have you ever had to pause and reset your approach to self?
I think every day, in fact. I think it's something where this field can very often lead to burnout. And so very often you do have to kind of stop and go, what's going on? Why am I doing this? Why am I tired? I'm not great. I will be the first to tell you that I'm not great at balance. And so what happens is that I will do too much and then have to stop and go, okay, we need to pull ourselves towards ourselves here and find the balance. But it's not always easy.
Yeah. You have a very demanding career and a lot of responsibilities. How do you maintain balance and stay grounded in your personal?
Yeah, like I say, I'm not great at it. It is definitely something that I'm supposed to work at and try to work at. But what I find helpful in terms of grounding is I do love hiking. I love walking in general. So I try to do that. Can't always do it as often as I'd like, but when possible, I will try. And yesterday I did a 10K. So I will try and walk as much as I can because I do find that that will help to regulate me and help to bring back a sense of balance and sort of just generally feeling better. I find spending time with my family, I'm very grateful that I have a good family and we get along really well. So I spend time with my family and I find that that can help to balance. Sleep is of paramount importance to me. It's one of the things I don't negotiate on. I do get a good 8 hour sleep as much as I can. I'm very good at taking my vitamins and trying to make sure that internally, look, I'm not great at my eating, but at least I'll try with my vitamins. And then I
Yeah.
suppose one thing that I do find I use for balance is coffee. I drink my coffee and I need it to get through the day.
Oh, you drink coffee. I thought drinking coffee is a bad thing.
Yeah, they say so. But I just think that it's just it's necessary. For me, it's compulsory, and
It's necessary.
it's necessary. It's one of the ways I get through the day. It's just safer that way.
So, looking ahead, what are you dreaming about, both for your practice and for your personal?
For my personal, I am busy publishing my first children's book, and I'm very excited about that. It's been illustrated, and I'm hoping that that's going to happen fairly soon. I would very much love to start my PhD, so that's kind of on the list. In terms of my own practice, I would love to get to a place where I can have more balance. That would be ideal, is I could have more balance and I could work better hours and I could work at one or two practices because I work at a lot of places. So I'd love to get to a place where there's a lot more balance. That would be ideal for me and something I'm striving for.
So what I've gotten is that you love education. Since well,
Yes.
you're thinking of getting your PhD.
Yes, I absolutely love education. And it's interesting because when I looked back and I reviewed that thing that the teacher had said to me, I could see that even though she had said that, I didn't really allow it to stop me from trying to learn. During school for the rest of my high school career, I was actually the top achiever, which made no sense. So in that specific class where we didn't take maths, I was actually already the top achiever and I did love learning. And then as soon as I left school, I enrolled in some sort of small course. And actually throughout my life, as I've looked back, I've always been doing something small, something that I've been studying towards, or just something to add towards, my own personal growth. And obviously, PhD would be the ultimate, but I am well aware of the huge demand it's going to take, and I need to maintain some form of balance before and during that kind of process. So, yeah, I'm giving it a lot of thought at the moment.
So when will the your children's book come? Is it
So
anytime
it's
soon or?
Yes, it's so exciting. It's about Jeff. His name's Jeff. He's a giraffe, and it's all about avoidance and how he avoids his feelings. And then towards the end of the book, he starts to feel his feelings. So it's illustrated, and we actually are busy talking at the moment with the publisher and the printer. So I'm really hoping that I would love it. I would absolutely love it if it would be ready for Christmas. The printer has given us a quote, and we're just waiting on that to be able to finalize that, and then the contract in terms of a publisher. So it's exciting, and if I could in any way influence it, I'd absolutely love it if it could actually be ready for Christmas. Yeah, some things are out of my control, so we'll see.
Yeah, I thought maybe you were going to early next year. You want to do it now?
No, it's ready. It's ready. It's just got to go to the printer. It's ready. And when I spoke to the lady that had quoted us originally, she said no, she thinks we can have it ready for Christmas. So I mean I'd just be so excited if it could be ready for Christmas. So we'll see. If it's not, then it's not. Then it might be early January. But it's ready. It's ready to go. So we'll see.
It's possible. You still have time. It's
Yes,
very
yes. I've still got
possible.
lots of time. Yeah.
So, if someone wants to walk the same journey as you, would you suggest they start, if they want to get into the clinical psychology field, would you suggest they go the same field as?
Oh, this is such a hard question. What I will say is if you've got a dream, pursue it. And if you believe in yourself enough, you'll eventually get there. But set yourself up for success and just know that this is a journey. This is a very, very long journey. Prepare yourself and be prepared to face all of you and to risk rejection. But you can get there. It's not like you can't get there. And there are people who do. And there are people that get accepted every year. So you can do it. But just know that it is going to take all of you. And it's going to require a huge amount of sacrifice. I lost pretty much everything except my family in that journey, and it's huge. It's just next level amount of sacrifice. But it's possible. It's totally possible.
With that being said, Ithia, thank you for sharing your journey with us so open. Your story is such a powerful reminder that purpose is something we grow into, not something we stumbled upon by accident. I don't know. Maybe you have parting words you want to share before we
I just
close
want to
off.
say Thank you, Shapiso. Thank you for saying, for having this platform. I think it is so important that people have somewhere that they can go and hear other people's journeys and then make decisions for themselves, that this is something they want to do. And I think what you said right at the beginning is that knowing that it's never too late. It's never too late. There are people getting their bachelor's at age 90. It's never too late. Do it. Just do it. The time's going to pass anyway.
Awesome. Thank
Thank you.